When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
Hello and welcome to Rewind Raw. It's John Pollock, Wai Ting, live here from the Post Studios.
Back for another week.
Another week. Are you going to make it?
I think so. I think I'll make it.
This is the one. You're gonna definitely. We're gonna have a lot to discuss. My first question that I want to ask you for 24 hours: was that the best speech from Roman Roy that we have seen in the history of the character up on the mountains?
Ooh. I'm trying to think if he has any, if he's had any other like big speeches. He's not really much of a speech guy.
No.
Certainly not a heroic speech guy. But
I thought this was one of his finer moments on the show.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest babyface moments, I would say.
Manifestation of grief,
Yeah.
all hidden under. It's a negotiating tactic. That's what I'll say. And then in the end.
But it felt really real. And I heard a few interviews with Kieran Culkin after the fact, and he basically kind of talked about how much he really had to get into character, so much so that he wasn't even able to enjoy the view on top of that mountain in Norway. So anyway, it was a great episode.
All right. So that's it. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Was Kieran Culkin backstage at Raw?
Not to my knowledge.
No, he was not. But CM Punk was on Monday night. This was a story. I mean, I know a lot of sites like were reporting on this. Did I have the best picture selection?
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. WWE, like CM Punk with the WWE backstage.
I was pretty proud of that one.
What did you do? Like Google CM Punk backstage?
No, I can really take everyone behind the curtain, much like Punk was tonight. In our inventory, like we have a whole catalog of pictures for each particular wrestler. So when it comes up, this is one of our images that we have saved of Punk, and it was just too perfect and just wrote itself. It was either going to be this. We have a lot of Punk photos, and this was one that I thought was an oldie but a goodie.
Take a victory lap. You chose well.
That is it. So the story, which was first reported by Mike Johnson at pwinsider.com, is that CM Punk was seen backstage for a brief period of time Monday around the afternoon or so, and was meeting with, he was, hanging out with different talents, and apparently met with Paul Levesque briefly, which would have been the first time that those two have been together face to face since Cleveland in 2014. The report went on to state that he was eventually asked to leave, and one source telling PW Insider that it was a Vince McMahon call for him to leave the arena. And when he was informed to leave, he said his goodbyes and left. Fightful Select stating it was without incident. I was only able to confirm that he was there. He was seen. And I guess
and beyond that, we had video surface of.
There was this video as well of Punk apparently in the parking lot of the Allstate Arena with Tamina Snuka as well. This was circulating all over the place as well. So I mean, you did have eyes on him as well. So my question to you, Wai, is that there is a lot that you can certainly glean from this. What do you look at it as from the Punk side? What is this play? Because there is no other way than to describe this as a play. This is not somebody that after 9 years of no contact with WWE at an event, you know what? Now is the time that I really want to go and just say hi to the Miz.
Yeah. Well, when we speak of the Punk side at this point, it's the AEW side. He's coming back, everybody, and he's working for AEW. And I don't think he's making any rogue moves on his own without the approval of Tony Khan and AEW. They're booking an arena, for him in Chicago. So this is an AEW move, and I think it's probably a move to generate some buzz ahead of his return. Maybe, to play into a future story, or maybe just, just to get his name out there. But not that it takes a whole lot for the guy to get his name out there. You really could have just tweeted something, but this is that much better, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm always cautious when the explanation is, Well, it's going to generate buzz. And I don't know how much this is going to generate buzz for a show that is 2 months away that we're talking about for his theoretical return. Like, this is going to be a story for a day or so. And if there's nothing to it, then I don't know how much you've really accomplished here. And
Well, it's our lead story.
It's our lead story. Yes, it is. But is the interest in seeing a CM Punk that much greater today than it was 24 hours ago for people? Like, to me, I don't think 2 months from now we'll be saying, oh man, that time Punk was backstage at Raw in the afternoon and there was a video with Tamina Snuka and now he's coming back to AEW. I think you either have an interest in Punk or you don't. I guess,
but that also depends.
If in any way that this was either something that only Tony Khan was aware or that Punk did opt to just go and visit in Chicago, then this is a much larger story in terms of Punk doing something here in that you're AEW. And it's not just the talent that is like we saw with, Ricky Starks going to the Rumble to support a friend. It's very different when we're talking about this guy that is trying to piece together his bridge back to a locker room. And I can tell you this locker room is probably finding out about this like everybody else and looking at and having all these questions, which is the last thing you want for your locker room. And you have a whole network that is essentially, he is the franchise player of this yet to be announced show. Like, what is this guy doing? And then that becomes a much larger issue of what is this guy doing when he is under contract? It's not as though this is not like a Brock Lesnar move. You know what I mean? Where it's like to get his leverage up, he would show up at a UFC and could negotiate elsewhere. I mean, Punk is under a deal. So I don't understand from his perspective.
So we're playing this out as if it was a rogue decision.
I'm asking both because the idea that this was some idea hatched by Tony Khan and CM Punk, to me, it's like, I don't get it. I would not get this as some publicity stunt.
I mean, who understands what is a publicity stunt these days? Instagram and storying something has generated, a week's worth of headlines for a CM Punk. I think the opportunity presented itself that it was in Chicago. They have this, show that's booked that they're probably going to announce on Wednesday. And maybe just an idea somebody hatched up to, get some last minute Google search ranking for a CM Punk.
Wouldn't the stunt, if you were performing a stunt, why wouldn't you buy a ticket to Raw?
Because that feels a little too much like a stunt. Like what? Just invading and walking in down the ramp live.
He's there at Raw. Mean, like that's the level what you're thinking of. But what's
I think
gonna have more impact? This or
I would say this. I think at that point it's debatable which one is better. But I think this one maybe feels a little bit more covert. It's not as they don't have to invest as much, I suppose. I mean I don't know what they're thinking, but I just can't imagine that CM Punk, having gone through as much drama as he has recently, that he would jeopardize that.
He already did a month ago with the Instagram story about Moxley and all of that. Like,
that
was when.
But that would be under the suggestion that he was pissed off. Okay, he was pissed off about the whatever story like was out there of him with his injury. Now that they've booked the United Center and they're on the about to announce a show, but that's basically surrounding him. Would he I can't even imagine him lashing out. I don't see this being sort of guy having a tantrum. I'm going to go to the WWE show to talk to Paul.
I'm not even saying it would be out of a tantrum. I just whatever. I can't get into his head, and we're operating with limited knowledge of the incentive here to do this. All I'm stating is that if this is something where at least Tony Khan had this idea and it would have been kept to a very small amount of people. First of all, I wouldn't want my network partners, you look at the Warner side, there's probably few wrestlers that they are very familiar with under their umbrella, CM Punk being one of them, that you would want to have. You don't want to be surprising people above you when you're in this significant discussion phase about a new show and launching it all around this guy. And then they're reading about this guy showing up at a competitor's show. You just would not want that kind of surprise. And just looking at it on the flip side, if there were a chance that this was a guy just opting to do this for whatever reason, Phil Brooks would feel that this was a good idea to do today, then this is a much more crazier story if he was just feeling like, hey, I'm going to go to the WWE show and maybe feeling the need to not have a heads up out there.
Yeah, perhaps. Some people in the chat room are of the belief that maybe he just went because he wanted to apologize to people. Sure.
He's had 9 years to do that.
Well, come on. Maybe this is just convenience. Who knows? Maybe in the past few months, Punk has gone to some sort of
how many WWE
anger
shows,
management.
How many
anger
WWE
management
shows
rehab?
did he attend while he was on the backstage show? How many did he go to? 0.
Right.
0.
Well, listen, we can speculate all day, and it's fun as hell to speculate. Anything related to CM Punk is like incredibly fun to discuss and to talk about. But ultimately, I feel like it's pretty safe to say that I think he's got a lot going on with AEW right now, and I don't see that changing at all. With this action, and I don't think this action would have taken place without AEW in mind.
You would certainly hope so. Yeah, like again, you can certainly look at it from the perspective of like the true value you're going to have out of this. Like maybe we'll look back in a week. Maybe so. Maybe I would want that in some way that this is. I just don't know how this leans into promotion for his return or anticipation growing for his return.
How have they built anticipation for this United Center show up until this point? What have they done?
I wouldn't say they've built any at this point. It's
the news cycle has done it. We've done it. The audience has done it simply by having this guy out there. This, like it or not, that Instagram story has done it. Simply having him be a part of the conversation has created this anticipation for CM Punk's return.
Well, he's been gone for a long time and he's returning. It's like a watered down version of the last comeback that he did in AEW.
But I think with even added intrigue because of all the backstage machinations that have taken place at this point.
Well, we have a lot of stories to get into. Just tonight, this was an interesting update that we got from the Dyad, Jagger Reed and Rip Fowler, noting publicly that they requested their releases earlier this month, as we had discussed, and they were denied today, those releases. We had seen them on television over the last several weeks, and adding the fact that they will become free agents October 15th. So this would seem from the outside looking in that they very much want to be out and figure that why not throw this out there publicly, almost as a way to pressure the company to release them, which I hope for their sake that this does not become a period where they just put these guys on ice or something like that. And, you want to,
don't they have a title match coming up?
They had a title match last week. They were in that triple threat match. Okay. So, I mean, you have months left on your deals at this point. They have, 6 months left. So they certainly want out. That would be the and I would assume that like they have some plan of where they want to be, because I don't know if this is the exact time I would want to be going this route to try and get out when there are limited options out there for guys at this level. Let's, with all due respect to the Dyad.
Yeah, I'd love to know like how truly frustrated they must be working these gimmicks, to be, I guess, this upfront about wanting out of this company.
It could be a variety of reasons, but certainly so. Like this gimmick has not been a winner with the schism.
Yeah. I mean, it's burning a bridge for sure, isn't it, John? 6 months isn't that long away, and if they really weren't this frustrated, they could have just really waited out these contracts. But they seem to be that frustrated that they wanted out these 6 months earlier, and aren't afraid to further publicly sort of talk about their frustrations and unhappiness within this company to try to get it. In a way, I think it makes them sympathetic figures in the audience's eyes, like several people in the past, like a Brody Lee in the past. is there that sort of big pent up demand for, you know, a GYV AEW run or indie wrestling run? I don't know, maybe, but I guess they're trying to get their start right now.
Stardom held their All-Star Grand Queendom event over the weekend at Yokohama Arena. 5,539 people was the announced attendance, their largest attendance in history. Did you get to see any of the show?
I saw most of the show. Yeah.
I watched the entire thing. This show was incredible. I think one of the best shows of the year. To me, this was on par with night one of WrestleMania, with Revolution as well. This to me, the final 5 matches, you had, first of all, you had Tam Nakano winning the World of Stardom title in the main event from Julia. This to me was the match of the show, and that was some heavy competition. But this match, outside of this utterly gruesome headbutt to the back of Tam Nakano's head that led to Chris Charlton screaming, "Jesus Christ!" I mean, an all-time call from Chris Charlton, but a truly sick headbutt in the closing stretch here. But man, first of all, even going, well, we can talk about the match first. I mean, you saw the Northern Lights bombs here by Tam Nakano, and then eventually hitting a second one, and then the Twilight Dream. That was a big near fall, and winning with the Violet Screwdriver in 23 minutes and 40 seconds, a match of the year contender. And I thought that this was one of the surprises on the show in terms of executing the title switch. And this was a show that had multiple title changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, like, this was very much like an introduction to Stardom for me. Like, I've kind of cherry picked things here and there, but I don't know if I've ever really sat down to watch a full show. And you know, this coupled with Karen and Bruce's preview, I think really was a great way to jump in. And if you were a viewer like me, this was a great show to pick to watch, headlined by, I think, a wonderful main event. A lot of like the baby context, you know, might have not been as strong for me, somebody who's just kind of stepping in. But, you know, if you listen to Karen and Bruce, this has been a really long-standing feud. But the match itself was pretty great, you know, absolutely. I had like a big main event feel, but I think for me, it was more so just like being absorbed into just the Stardom product in and of itself. Up and down this card, it was like incredibly high quality professional wrestling.
I didn't even hate the Rumble. I thought this was like a pretty decent Rumble with all the different characters. I mean, not gonna like the world on fire, but like, I just hate those New Japan Rumbles. And this one was, you know, the vast majority worked like really hard in this opener that went, it still went your like 26 plus minutes.
But also like the pageantry of like, you know, this Yokohama Arena setting, the costuming is absolutely incredible for every single person that made an appearance.
When Julia came out, I mean, that just screamed top star, amazing. World champion. She looked incredible, I thought, for her entrance. Like that aura of the champion you want to project. I mean, I just remember seeing Julia like in her infancy when we saw her live. And that was only just over 3 years ago. And to where she has ascended to now, I mean, she had this like knock on her that she was like just this attractive woman that Stardom was trying to market. And she has grown into such an incredibly well-rounded performer that, you know, just checks all the boxes that you'd be looking for in that world champion. And that was why I thought they were going to continue this reign, but they ended up doing the title change.
There are a lot of very like attractive people in Stardom, and you know what? Like almost all of them can fucking go. Okay, that's the thing. Like it's a really high level of professional wrestler that is up and down this card. Where not only do you have to have a, you know, visually cosmetically presentable look, but you like the training is incredible and the pace is incredible. My personal match of the night was the Saya Kamatani Mina Shirakawa match, which was, I believe, like 4th from the top. For that to me, like, told just this beautiful story of, you know, a champion who was unsure of herself because she had injured her opponent with the Phoenix Splash earlier, and
pretty much like knocked her teeth out. Like this was a really vicious injury with a Phoenix Splash gone wrong.
Yeah, and so like I thought they wonderfully conveyed the self-doubt in her every time she tried to go up there to try to do the Phoenix Splash. And I think you had a really big, you know, breakout performance from Mina Shirakawa here, winning the championship. 5 title changes, I believe, on this show.
Yes, I think that was the number, but this was like the lengthy reign of Saya Kamatani, and she had won, with her second glamorous driver, winning this one in 17 minutes and 57 seconds. A great story in this match. Shuri and Chihiro Hashimoto. That was actually the one with the Jesus Christ in it. That went 16-10 here, and the match that obviously had a lot of attention going in was Mercedes Moné and Mayu Iwatani. I would say of the matches we just recounted there, I would put this one behind those three. But still, they had a really entertaining 13-minute match. But I did think it was a level below some of like the match of the year contenders that you had on top of this. But how did you think Mercedes looked in the match in particular?
Well, I don't disagree with you, John. And I also don't really have that level of expectation for a Mercedes. I think it's very clear watching Stardom. You could be the best wrestler in the WWE, but that still kind of puts you maybe somewhere in the middle of the package, just simply speaking of work rate when it comes to Stardom. But what Mercedes brings, of course, is a really high level of mainstream attention and North American attention that nobody else on this roster would be able to bring. And to that effect, I thought it was like an incredibly effective use of her. Obviously, I don't know what the numbers are, but like, she's a big part of the reason why people are even watching and talking about the show on this side of the world. And the fact that, they said themselves they wouldn't have English commentary unless Mercedes was a part of this match. I thought it was a very good match, but I think
it was a very good match.
But I think it was effective in showing that, hey, as good as you might think Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks is, if you're a WWE fan, we have like several other wrestlers that are far better even than her. So, yeah.
Yeah, there was like a 2-stage dragon suplex by Mayu Iwatani to win this. And Moné also got this nasty hematoma on her forehead about midway through the match. So she came out and her hair was in the style of like the colors of Darth Maul. And she was looking like a Star Trek character by the end with this hematoma.
I thought Bruce had said that like she might have got this during a press conference or something like that. But I noticed it partway through the match.
I thought it was during the match myself. But what did you think about the Darth Maul color scheme? Who does it better, her or Dustin Rhodes?
The Darth Maul color scheme. Has Dustin done it recently?
With the face paint, yeah.
Oh, okay. I would probably give the edge to Mercedes. Yeah. How about that Black Tiger tribute?
Very nice that she came out dressed. This was Mercedes coming out with the Black Tiger mask. And I wanted to talk a bit about the commentary because this was a different role Chris Charlton was in. He was play-by-play, and it's also for many first-time viewers that he was going to be the person explaining a lot of this. And he did the commentary with Sonny Gutierrez, and then Mariah May of the Club Venus group. She also joined in. I was very impressed.
She was a late replacement.
Yeah, she came in. She was like in the opening Rumble match, then she came on commentary, and then she was in a corner later in the show as well, and going back and forth. I was very impressed with her.
She was not supposed to be doing commentary, but somebody who was supposed to be doing it got injured earlier in the day. So,
yeah, was that Momo Kogo? I think
yes.
That was she was supposed to be on commentary, and they even mentioned it during the Rumble that she would be joining them. And yeah, Mariah May gets thrown in there. She did a very good job.
Yeah.
But Chris, I thought, was a very key part of this show in terms of, like, I think Stardom, they really need, if you're investing all this in a Mercedes Moné, you need to be investing in English commentary. It doesn't have to be for every last show you do, but every pay-per-view, I think you need to have this option. It's a must.
Absolutely must a must. And I think beyond just having commentary, I think they just again being a new fan, getting into Stardom, there's a whole lot more they could have done just to make things easier for the English speaking audience.
Like what?
Having a link to get the show sometime before 3 days ahead of the show. I don't understand that sort of PIA live system. I think it's overly complicated. I think they should have these shows on Fight, I would have actually put this show on World, just even if you're sacrificing a whole lot of pay-per-view dollars, but just as a way to be like, hey, you never heard of Stardom before, pay us $10 a month, you get this show, and then hopefully these people manage to stay on. Because now
It's also, it's not even what you're suggesting, like giving the show away. If it just requires a sign up on Stardom World and you're asking people to sign up for the $8, yeah, good chance you watch this show and you're going to continue your subscription, as opposed to you buy it on PIA and it's a one-off payment. What is driving you to Stardom World? And you only get so many of these types of shows that, again, it's not like you're just throwing this up on YouTube and the most eyeballs can watch it and you hope they'll continue. I don't always agree with that kind of strategy, but getting people to sign up for your home service and you watch this show, I mean, would you be dropping Stardom World if you signed up for this? I think a lot of people would be like, okay, I'm going to stick around for another month to see this. And you announce, hey, we're going to have English commentary on our once a month big show. It might not be on all the spot shows, but at least on the big shows, you can have a team of whoever is available. Like Sonny Gutierrez can be a constant there. When Chris Charlton is available, you can use him. There's enough voices out there that if you're investing so much in
Karen Peterson,
Karen Peterson, if you're investing this much in a Mercedes Moné, like I think a lot of companies sometimes they underestimate the hurdle for some fans when it comes to commentary. Like I will gladly watch this with Japanese commentary, but are you growing your product with that mentality? I think you're hindering it, and it scares off newer fans.
We should note that it will be on Stardom World on a 3-day delay, so it should probably be up like what, tomorrow, if not
probably midweek, like Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday
usually is when the turnaround time is.
So thankfully, I think there's enough buzz being generated out of the show that if you didn't
like
watch
this was an all-time great all-women's show. I mean, this was like you had, I would say, like 5 matches on here that were pretty blow away great. That main event, I think, is it's up there.
It's a great introduction to the cast, and I think that's what you want. You want like somebody to have an identity attached to every single participant. And I think if you watch every single match, you'll come out of it being like, I know who Saya Kamatani is. I know who Shiri is. I know, like, and they have enough stars in there now, like that have, I think, considerable buzz that like everybody has an identity. And that's what will get a returning customer. So I hope they make a bigger deal out of it. I hope they address a lot of things, like, having just English subtitles for a lot of their things and just introductions to the roster and whatnot, to really take advantage of maybe some of this elevated buzz coming off of this show.
Yeah, I mean, if you did end up buying the show, I think you would have been blown away by the show. Like, it really was one of the better shows this year. So for more, you can go to the Post Wrestling Cafe, and Bruce Lord and Karen Peterson. They have a primer and they have the review of the show. So if you haven't seen it yet, you can also go back and listen to their 1-hour preview that sets up all of the stories, and then Cafe members have the review from the two of them. Yeah. Also, in terms of Mercedes Moné, it was reported on Saturday by the Wrestling Observer that there was an extension that Moné had agreed to beyond Sunday's show at Yokohama Arena, and that will be for the Resurgence show that she's been added to on May 21st in Long Beach, California, which is the same show that has Tanahashi and Ospreay. Tanahashi's rib injury hopefully being healed by then. But Stardom Fightful is adding that apparently there are no more Stardom dates, and the extension doesn't appear to be going, at least now, beyond this date. They wrote that they were told by members of her team that as of now, that covers the May New Japan show in the United States. Sources we spoke to in New Japan weren't sure how long the deal ran, but did say there weren't matches scheduled in Japan for at least a while. So still some question marks in terms of the long term for Mercedes Moné. But seeing this run, what she has been able to generate for Stardom / New Japan, if you are Mercedes, like what would you see as her path? Because she is one that does have a lot of options outside of wrestling as well that she is going to want to explore too. Is this a good balance for her professional wrestling wise to be with a company that does not require her to be there weekly?
I think I would balance it with something in North America. I think all of this is suggesting that, she comes at a very high price point. That Stardom and Bushiroad and New Japan can really only afford like maybe one match extensions at a time, so maybe after this Long Beach show they'll come to an agreement to maybe get another date. Who knows, but clearly she might be a lot more expensive than maybe what Stardom is able to justify through what they're generating, and maybe like at this point maybe even more than what AEW, because like I'm kind of surprised that like if the option is out there that she wouldn't have already maybe further talks with a company like that. But again, like she's not somebody who just needs to rely on professional wrestling. So I ultimately see her returning to the WWE as maybe a bigger star, and if that's maybe your long-term goal, then this might be the only time you'd be able to experience working in Japan, training in Japan, taking on movie projects just as yourself. So for the time being, yeah, maybe it's a good option for her.
It's and we don't know all the full like details of how this show did, but I think this show on Sunday would be the best representation of the Mercedes Moné investment, and what obviously it's coming with a price tag. How well did it pay off on Sunday? Like we saw the response. Like they sold several hundred tickets when she was announced for San Jose. She did the Sakura Genesis show, but this was the show that everything was building towards, and this was making a big impact to try and get North American viewers to tune in. So if she can look at this as being like, if there was a big spike for this show of their English language viewers, she has to take a lot of the credit for that.
Well, the question is, what exactly does a big spike entail? Because I believe it's been reported that the buy rate for this show is 5 times more than the last Stardom show. But what is a 5 times
of U.S. viewers or
of the U.S. viewers? But what are you?
You're talking a very small baseline number. So whatever you're talking about on top of that is, it's again. I think you outlined some of the issues that this is not going. Like there's friction, I would say, between a viewer that has never watched Stardom before, and just like for people that order Stardom shows all the time, it makes no sense that you would have any problem with this. But for a new person, like it's a different site. It's not
another
something
bill
that they're comfortable with.
And you're asking people to buy pay-per-views when, like, I think in North America, people are already starting to get conditioned to getting everything as part of a subscription service for $10 a month.
This is a $33 ask. US as well. So it's a bit of an investment.
So again, like I can only assume, somebody like a Mercedes is asking for and is worth something like, what a Jericho was getting for New Japan, or what a Moxley was getting for New Japan. But is the system in place for Stardom to recoup that money? Is the system in place for New Japan to recoup that money through their limited featuring of women's wrestling? And for that reason, I don't know how long this relationship can really last.
Well, the relationship between AEW and AAA continues to deepen after it was thought to be maybe they would be at odds with one another. Well, they have now. AAA has been able to put together the match they have wanted for so long on Mexican soil. El Hijo del Vikingo and Kenny Omega, July 15th at Tijuana as part of Triple Mania 31. It will be for the Mega Championship, the rematch from their March 22nd match on Dynamite. So we've got a dream match twice in 1 year.
Is a dream match still a dream match after you've already seen it? I don't have to dream it anymore.
You can redream it.
A redream match. All right.
I'll tell you, these two, they have a pretty high bar to clear from their last match.
Yeah.
And I'm sure these two are going to attempt to do it. This is going to be, this is very similar to our discussion point of, Stardom. Like this is going to be AAA trying to, peak for a major event and a match that your audience is going to want to see. And this is one that is available on Fight.
Yeah. I think it'll probably generate a good amount of buzz, and I would say like this is maybe proof that like these sort of like co-promotional working relationships are beneficial for everybody. Would we
does this get any promotion on AEW? Because they have certainly been willing to work with a lot of companies, but when it comes to in-program promotion, that is something we don't see.
You might get a mention from Excalibur on commentary, but I don't think you're seeing a graphic or anything like that. It's just doesn't seem to be an AEW style. But you can argue like, hey, like the first match was enough promotion in and of itself for this rematch. What does it mean for Kenny Omega's contractual status with AEW? Because Conan had said the hold up the last time was because Kenny was sort of in limbo with his
Well,
contract.
I think part of that was Conan kind of speculating on what the issues were. I wouldn't read this match announcement as indicative of, this is a sign that Kenny Omega has signed. We don't know the exact, well, you can do the math. His deal was going to be up in February, and then he had all those months that he was gone that the deal got extended. So it's not as though that would add up to his deal being up by July. Like
But you could re-up, you could renegotiate. But you're right. Like we
yeah,
don't know.
you certainly could. I mean, it's not saying. All I would say is like this could mean either one. Like I don't think that this is evidence of a new deal being signed. But nonetheless, it's a very big get for Triple A to have this match. They've also announced it's the second round of their mask and hair tournament with Arush and LA Park against Psycho Clown and Sam Adonis, which came out of the last Triple Mania. So the losers will face each other in August in the final Triple Mania show of the year in a mask versus hair match. They are also going to do a Copa Triple Mania show match with one team led by Nicho, the original Psicosis, against a team led by Negro Casas. And there reportedly are going to be 7 matches on this show. So 4 more to be announced. WBD and WWE. So we talked about this on Friday when James Andrew Miller did his big appearance on Train of Thoughts last week. And Fightful does have an update. So James Andrew Miller, for those that are unfamiliar, he is a pretty prominent media reporter that has written books on CAA, did one on HBO, ESPN. So he was on Train of Thoughts, and he had stated he was theorizing the idea of Raw leaving Monday nights. And when discussing Warner Brothers Discovery, I mean, he flat out stated that he knows that Warner Brothers Discovery is interested in WWE programming. It was not him, this is my theory, or like he pretty much stated that he knows this. So Fightful stated that based on their information, that this has not been the case, and that several WWE higher-ups had inquired as to whether or not that's something people within the industry have heard, and noted that they'd not heard about that whatsoever. We're told there haven't been conversations regarding WWE and Warner Brothers Discovery. There have been conversations with several places that serve as possibilities, however. And then goes on to state that sources at Warner Brothers Discovery tell the opposite. There was nothing ill of WWE noted in our conversations, but they indicated that WBD is gearing up to substantially expand their relationship with AEW from both a financial and content perspective that will become evident soon. So from that sign, it would not appear that, Fightful was able to detect any smoke to the fire that James Andrew Miller put out on Train of Thoughts. At the same time, it was not a denial from Warner Brothers Discovery either. It sounds like this is them stating that, they are, what I read this to be is they have a significant commitment to AEW, and whether they have some pipe dream of being able to just add more wrestling, which I would not see as feasible. Time will certainly tell if Warner Brothers Discovery becomes any kind of a player for wrestling outside of AEW, but it would seem WWE is not aware of any of that, and Warner Brothers, I certainly would not take this as anything to be concerned if you're an AEW fan of them choosing one over the other, and their programming slate would only back that up. Like they are only adding more hours, and I would not sense them dropping AEW and doing all of this additional programming.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if there's really that much concern maybe to begin with, just based off of such, limited information that we've had. Do we know that, sorry, what was the media journalist
James
name?
Andrew Miller.
Yeah. Did James Andrew Miller simply mean there's interest, meaning, hey, like somebody said, I'm interested. Do we know that it went any further than maybe
all I will say, like for those that are maybe not familiar, like I'll just say, like James Andrew Miller, like he is very well sourced in the industry. I mean, if from a wrestling standpoint, like for his HBO book, he wanted to get an interview with Vince McMahon, got an interview with Vince McMahon. You know what I mean? Yeah. How many sit downs has Vince McMahon done in the last like 5 years? He did one with James Andrew Miller. So, he is someone that I would certainly, it's not like it's just some random person throwing out that knowledge, but
he did simply state there's interest, right? And
that's it. And it's an incredibly vague description. and in what context, certainly it would be irresponsible to just jump to conclusions and think it means a whole lot more given their contractual obligations to AEW. But I mean, you have to look at all of these potential suitors as, who are any of these places going to say flat out, no, we're not interested now? I mean, you're always keeping options open, I would think.
Yeah, he seemed to really like dig into like the whole Monday movement aspect of it. And do you look any further into that? The fact that like he was so maybe keen on expanding on that discussion.
So he to me would not strike me as someone that is an ardent professional wrestling follower. So to me, when he was talking about that, it's obvious to me that that's coming from sources like that. He's obviously had these talks with people, whether that's with Warner Brothers Discovery, whether that's for other broadcasters. And it would be a natural idea you would come up with. Like, wrestling fans might be married to Monday nights, but for other broadcasters, I mean, they might look at Monday night as, okay, this is the number one show on cable, but it's got to face Monday Night Football X amount of nights of the year. Can we just find a night where that's not a problem? Even though like Monday Night Football and Raw, they have gone hand in hand since the invention of Raw. So it's like we're talking about a 30-year head-to-head problem that they have had. But yeah, to answer your question, I would imagine that that's coming from some conversations he's had because he was very specific about that note. We continue on. We'll stay on the television front. SmackDown on Friday did 2,175,000 viewers, a 0.54 in the demo. So this was actually their lowest audience of the year, going against NBA playoffs on both ABC and ESPN and NHL playoffs on TNT and TBS. Their lowest 18-49 number since January the 6th. And in Canada, the bloom has come off the rose way after, months of just monster numbers in Canada. They did 161,300 viewers and 48,000 in the demo, which would be their lowest demo figure this year. This was 9th among sports programs for the night in Canada, going against, the same as the US with NHL and NBA playoff games going on. But this Friday, they are certainly gearing up to try and do a sizable audience, both with the WrestleMania rematch and the draft. Right.
Yeah. No. You don't want to fuck with hockey if you're in Canada. Okay.
No. So. And we should mention like Raw was on OLN again this week and up against the Leafs and Lightning tonight, which like Raw, I am sure is going to get nailed in Canada tonight. Like that is I'm sure that's going to be a monster number that the Leafs pull. Did you see Edge and Christian attended the game tonight in Tampa?
I did not. Interesting. Yeah, okay.
We're there. Last thing we will note, a bunch of stuff coming up the next 2 nights between NXT and Dynamite. We've got Spring Breakin'. Joey Janela's Spring Breakin'.
I don't think he'll be on the show. I don't think
Joey Gacy's Spring Breakin'.
I don't think early morning Guy Steele is going to be on this one.
Probably not. No one's no explosions, none of that sort. But we will have Carmelo Hayes and Grayson Waller for the NXT title, a triple threat with Indy Hartwell, Tiffany Stratton, and Roxanne Perez for the women's title, Braun Breaker against Andre Chase, Cora Jade against Lyra Valkyria, Fallon Henley and Josh Briggs taking on Kiana James and Brooks Jensen, and the match that is going to draw weigh-in on Tuesday night. It's a trunk match between Pretty Deadly against Tony D'Angelo and Channing Lorenzo, where the losers are the ones that are stuffed into a trunk.
Have we had a trunk match? Is there a history of trunk matches?
We've had ambulance matches. We've had casket matches. I don't think we've ever had a trunk match.
Dog cage matches, I believe we've had.
Yes.
Trunk match, a first time trunk match. Wow. Okay.
A lot of trunks come with the safety inside that you can open the trunk from inside.
Yes.
For this very reason, for a trunk match.
Well, I would hope that one of them has this disabled ahead of time.
Have you ever been locked in a trunk?
Never.
No.
Have you?
No. I would be so claustrophobic if I was in a trunk.
Will they be wearing trunks? I would hope so.
Perhaps. Maybe one of them will get hit by an elephant trunk.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And
all those things.
Yeah. And maybe they'll get interviewed by Eddie Trunk afterwards. Moving on.
I don't know who that is, but
Dynamite from Sunrise, Florida on Wednesday has Darby Allin against Sammy Guevara in the Four Pillars tournament, Jade Cargill against Taya Valkyrie for the TBS title, and on Rampage, it was explained by Mark Sterling that Taya cannot use Road to Valhalla. Orange Cassidy against Bandito for the international title. This should be great.
Yes. Orange Cassidy really in anybody, but especially or Bandito in anybody. So yeah, sounds great.
Kenny Omega and Konosuke Takeshita against the Butcher and the Blade. Jeff Jarrett against Dax Harwood.
Jeff Jarrett versus.
I want to see this.
Are you sure this isn't Spring Breakin'?
It might be. Well, it is no break for Tony Khan's announcements because he will have a big one on Wednesday.
I think every wrestling show from this point on will have either a Tony Khan or a Triple H announcement.
Yeah. Maybe they'll come up with like a special like playlist of the Tony Khan big announcements.
I think that should be a category for best
Tony Khan announcement.
Sure. Yeah.
What's been the best one this year? Wembley? That was a big one.
We haven't had too many this year, have we?
Well, we'll see what he has this week. Wardlow and Arn Anderson on the show, and Adam Cole will speak. So it's a pretty loaded Dynamite show. Some very like Darby and Sammy Guevara is going to be great. Cassidy and Bandito is going to be very good. I imagine Omega and Takeshita together against Butcher and the Blade.
I'm most excited for that. Just to kind of see Takeshita and Omega. I mean, Omega really like has done pretty well as far as like tag team partners goes, and this one with the DDT connection, I'm looking forward to seeing.
That is all of your news. You can go to postwrestling.com for more. We had some fantastic shows on the site this past weekend. We had the NWA podcast with Nate Milton, Andrew Thompson, and Chris Ely recovering from WrestleMania weekend back. And also back was Brian Mann, who was also there in LA over WrestleMania week, dropping some news and notes from his interactions during WrestleMania week. They covered plenty, including Davante's loss at WrestleMania,
and some great booking ideas, I think, from Brian. Like let's not forget the man is an incredibly successul. Did you know he works for Hot Ones? Did you know he's an executive producer at Hot Ones? Did you know
I did not know that.
That's like the most popular show in the world. Okay,
he's a big deal. He
does that. Of course, he's got Outside Interference, one of the most popular YouTube channels that's going on right now. But of course, the man also used to be a part of WWE Creative. So. It was lovely to get to hear some of his thoughts on how he would have booked maybe some of this.
I thought they also had a really great discussion on the whole Mississippi welfare scandal that's going on, that's involving Brett Favre, but more connected to pro wrestling is the DiBiase family that is all over this thing. It's a really terrible story, and it's gotten a lot of national attention. But it was a very good discussion that they had on that. Plus, we had Karen and Bruce's review on the cafe and a new WrestleNomics radio with the Holy Trinity together of Chris, Jesse, and Brandon, and the greatest edition of Bing GPT predicting the renewal rights and how each are going to do. I would love to watch Brandon just spend a whole night on with like AI generated questions of what the future will hold.
Yes, I think that Bing GPT could be an official fourth host of WrestleNomics, perhaps. Really,
true or false? You have discovered you have dove into some of this.
Yeah. I typed up a potential script of a review. Like I just asked ChatGPT to make a review of John Pollock and Wai Ting for Post Wrestling, and it gave me like a whole script. So maybe at some point we'll read it. We won't even tell you all. You'll just have to figure it out to see if we're coming up with these words or if ChatGPT is.
Well, coming up this week, you are going to get a non-AI version of Braden Harrington and Davey Portman Tuesday night, 10:15 Eastern on this very channel after Spring Breakin'. They're going to be having the Spring Breakin' after party. So check that out Tuesday night. Wednesday, we're here for Dynamite, and Thursday, Wai and I, we're going to do the only thing we know how to do, talk. It is coming up this Thursday. We're going to cover life, AI, Twitter, Elon, health, smoothies. We're coming at you hard.
Smoothies, especially.
Yeah, this is going to be a smoothie listen. Okay, Thursday for cafe members.
There's a sentence I said on the show that I didn't think I'd ever broadcast.
I don't even know what this line was.
It's just tune in and find out. This
I'm going to tune in and find out now. Yes. All that and more. Plus, we will be live Friday night at 10 Eastern after the draft. So 10 Eastern. Rampage is on at 5:30 on Friday. So TBD if we will have time to watch Rampage, but we will definitely have a thorough SmackDown review and night one of the draft. But on we go to Raw. I'm exhausted by this point. I'm ready to just sign off now. We had Raw in a very hot all-state arena, 12,952 sellout, according to WrestleTix, and this was a pretty hot crowd. I mean, they were into most everyone on this show. They brought up a ton of the matches and various segments. A pretty great crowd in Chicago.
Kind of living up to Chicago's, reputation, right?
Cody came out and he went over the craven and cowardly attack by Brock Lesnar. It was one of the most humiliating beatdowns he's ever received. But let me show you this. And he took off his shirt and tie and threw them into the crowd. And he showed off his scar from the torn pec that he competed in this very arena at Hell in a Cell last June. He's never watched the match back, and he challenges Lesnar. Pick a spot. Give me another scar. And he said that night, it was you, the people, that lifted me up and carried me through, and I thank you. I mean, this guy, just the ultimate babyface.
Agreed. Yeah. I feel like this was a week where Cody kind of was put more back into focus as like a main event player. I mean, he really has been throughout the weeks, but I would say the loss and maybe the disappointment coming off of the WrestleMania was kind of still on him, where he kind of felt like, guy who had failed his task, guy who's a second placer. And to a large extent, he still kind of does. But I thought today he really kind of stepped up and felt like he was like a main player, like the guy again, at least for now.
He's confronted by Finn Balor, who states that Cody could not win on his own. He'd be a perfect fit for the Judgment Day. They would be unstoppable. But Cody respectfully declines the offer. And Balor says, you're either with us or against us, and you better watch your back, or I'm going to slap that bleach off your hair. And Cody notes that he was medically cleared earlier today. He wants a match with Finn Balor, and it is made for later in the show. Nice open to the show, and I agreed with you with Cody. The audience, they took to him as a big star. I still heavily question not going with Cody at WrestleMania, but I can't argue that you look at some of these numbers they're posting for these shows coming up, and the reaction Cody's getting. I can't say Cody has been diminished by this, but
he could have been much bigger.
I completely agree.
And especially with some of the decisions later on today, we will get to it. Like it just makes WrestleMania that much more questionable.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
The Usos and Solo Sikoa against the L.W.O. And the L.W.O. comes out to new theme music with a sample of the Viva La Raza off the top, which is interesting given that Chavo Guerrero was doing a signing over the weekend. And of course, Andrew Thompson found this. And Chavo was pretty vocal about the fact of like the amount of usage WWE gets out of the Guerrero name and not being so cool with it, about how much they have utilized this. And it's just interesting to hear one of the Guerreros speak about that openly.
Yeah, so we should mention it was a virtual signing with Captain's Corner where this news came up. But yeah, transcribed and put out to the world by Andrew Thompson. So credit to that man. I don't know.
Posted the New York Post picked this up, crediting Post Wrestling.
Yeah,
look at that.
Made it to the top of Squirt Circle without crediting Post Wrestling, but nonetheless, it's all right. But Andrew does a great job. Does a great job as always. I don't know if this is him just kind of like working. I would always usually assume like wrestlers are. I mean, he kind of was campaigning for like a second match with Ray, right? So
if you read more into it, I mean, sometimes you look at these and you could probably see like it's rooted in some real feeling, but also with the knowledge that I can work something out of this. It's certainly what you can take it when he gets into the race stuff. Like it certainly does get into sort of that territory, but you can also imagine that there is, some pushback perhaps as well, but nonetheless, so there's dives by the L.W.O. members. They clear the ring. Del Toro, who got to both him and Joaquin Wilde, I thought like this was a match that it was a hot crowd and they got a chance to really showcase. These two are very underrated. I think Santos gets a lot of the attention, but these two are very strong. Del Toro goes to the Phoenix Splash on Jimmy when Jay makes the save. Crowd is red hot. Santos runs into the post. There's a spinning solo to Wilde on the edge. And then Del Toro is on top and he's setting up for a coast to coast. And Solo comes in and the referee grabs him and Del Toro's kind of got to just wait there. And then Solo gets free of the ref and is behind the ref's back as Del Toro leaps in the air and gets caught with the Samoan spike in midair. They follow with the 1D, pinning Del Toro in 8 minutes and 41 seconds.
I thought the closing spot was pretty awesome. you know, like Samoan Spike out of nowhere. Lovely little TV match, I thought. You know, yes, the Bloodline win, but I mean, I thought that was a bit of a foregone conclusion.
They should win going into Friday.
Of course. And it's the Bloodline. Like, nobody beats them other than, you know, Sammy and Kevin. But I thought the L.W.O. continued to like receive a lot of great exposure throughout all of this. They had most of the shine throughout this match, and you have to consider this to be a continued elevation for Legado del Fantasma. Santos, I think, has been showcased pretty well in his matches teaming with Rey Mysterio. But in this match, like you said, John, it was the other two. Joaquin Wilde, oh man,
Cruz del Toro,
yes, who spent a lot of time in the spotlight, and I'm especially happy for somebody like a Joaquin Wilde. God, what a WWE name, Joaquin Wilde. DJZ, Zima on, whatever you want to call him. Like, these guys are finally getting significant roles in the company, as WrestleNomics told us, the top merch sellers again.
These LWO shirts are hot, and they're going to have a very big. I mean, those things are going to be gigantic sellers in Puerto Rico.
Exactly. So for that reason, I'm happy to see them get continued focus. They can afford a loss to the Usos, but I don't think they could be losing that much. So I hope, you know, they get a push, like a real push soon coming off.
I hope they're keeping them all together in this draft.
Yeah, I would hope so too. Yeah.
Jay gets on the mic. He says they had one bad night at WrestleMania. They let down the Bloodline. They let down the Tribal Chief. But Friday won't be a bad night. They're becoming 9-time champions and dedicating this win to Roman Reigns. And
also,
then,
wanted to. Sorry, are you about to talk about this weird shit we've been happening? Yeah.
There was a bunch of technical issues on tonight's show, like way more than you would ever expect on a WWE broadcast. And the first one that was really noticeable is Kevin Patrick and Corey Graves, who are teeing up the tag match for Friday, while the camera is on Kathy Kelly for like 15 seconds before they finally cut back. And throughout the show, like, shaky cameras, like when they were doing the Make-A-Wish
they were cutting away to cameras that weren't ready to be live on air or cutting to sources.
It was very noticeable throughout tonight. Like, it was I can't remember a WWE show that had this many production snafus.
The most I've seen on a WWE production. Yeah, like, it was that uncharacteristic to the point where I mean, it could be maybe a very inexperienced person switching, but I'm more likely to think that it was some sort of technical issues that they just couldn't have like figured out throughout the broadcast, because I can't imagine with the amount of professionals that are back there that this wouldn't have been handled and changed right away. So something weird was certainly happening.
Very glaring on a WWE broadcast. So they get back to Kathy Kelly, who then interviews Bianca Belair, who is confronted by Damage Control, and Bayley is cutting Sky's promo for her, but then Sky cuts her off and has her own message for Belair and wants her tonight, and Bayley makes it a six-woman tag with Belair going off to find two partners. And where would Belair be able to find two partners? Well, thankfully, all champions reside under one roof, and you have access to multiple locker rooms, and you can always find partners. But that will not be the case in a few weeks.
Hey, Tamina's hanging out in the parking lot with CM Punk. Why didn't you go there?
Those should have been our two partners.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Jey Uso is on the phone and runs into Sami Zayn, and Sami can't believe he's dedicating his match to Roman Reigns, and you're not doing it for yourself. What happens if you come up short after putting Roman's name on this? It won't be good, and you don't deserve this. Jey asks, why do you care? Zayn says, I feel bad. Jey tells him, don't worry. And Zayn, you made your choice. I made mine.
I really like this. You know, both of these two characters, I really feel like lost something, you know, from not being attached to one another. Sami, I don't think has been as interesting without the bloodline. And I don't think Jey has been as interesting without the tension of whether or not he was going to side with Sami. So this is like a nice little kind of reheater to show that there's still mutual care and maybe even mutual love between these two. And they didn't come to blows. They had a, you know, conversation that got a little bit heated, but it felt like the conversation of like two people that like want to be friends and want to, you know, be brothers. But the things that standing in the way of the both of them is Roman Reigns. Sami's beef clearly isn't with Jey as much as it is with Roman, and Jey's focus isn't necessarily on beating up Sami. It's to impress Roman Reigns. So I hope this is a sign that this potential reunion is still a possibility. And it also kind of set up, you know, the stakes here for the Usos in this match.
Yeah, I feel all four of these participants for this tag match have been somewhat handcuffed. With Zayn and Owens, it's the chase was the big thing, and now they've got the titles, and you don't have the most thriving tag division that you have all these dream matches to get to. It's sort of this holdover with the Usos, which is fine. You should do a rematch. But then the Usos, their most compelling story involves the guy who's off television all month. So you've got to kind of continue this story when Roman isn't on TV. And I think it's, you've certainly like lost some of this edge, which I'm hoping after this tag title match and after the pay-per-view, you get Roman back and you can build up to his Saudi Arabia show and reheat this story up, because this has not been feeling like the hottest story since WrestleMania, but there's still a lot there with like the Usos losing on Friday. I think it's way more interesting for the Usos to lose Friday.
Agreed. Yeah.
Kelly interviews Trish Stratus, who asked why Becky Lynch isn't here, and mentions that Becky confided in her that she's under so much pressure as a performer, as a parent. While Trish notes, I have children and a lot going on too, but I took Becky out of her own misery, so she should be at home thanking me. My follow-up question, if Kathy Kelly had the time, would have been, okay, we've answered why Becky isn't here. Can we ask, why are you here?
That's a great
Chicago's
question.
a long trip? You have all this busy stuff that you've got on your plate, and you're here.
Well, maybe they'll just explain like, hey, the attendance is mandatory when you're a part of the locker room. Okay, you might not necessarily get a match, but we at least expect you to check in. Okay, Paul's like in the back, calling people's names and taking attendance.
Is mandatory attendance? I guess if you have like X amount of lates, then we water down your championship. That's the punishment.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I feel like I think Trish is finding her footing still. Like for compare, like because I just watched some clips of her like in her prime as a heel, and just like the smoothness is just really incredible. I think she's still getting there, and she would probably admit the same. But she's getting there, and I'm excited for this feud. Like I think once Becky comes back, it'll like probably do really well.
Do you see them going to that in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, because it's not for Backlash, so it seems probably likely, right? For Saudi.
It would seem really tough to hold this off further than that. I mean, you could always do something to get through Saudi Arabia, and then you're off until Money in the Bank. So there's that possibility too.
Right.
Street Profits and Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. Are you familiar with Alexander and Benjamin?
Yeah, I think they used to be in the Hurt Business.
Used to, yes. That went. That revival didn't really take, did it? What happened to that backstage meeting when we saw them in the background talking with
MVP?
MVP?
Don't know what the hell. Like obviously something got changed.
MVP is, guys. I think that ship sailed.
Yeah.
Well, the silencer was hit by Dawkins. Shelton made the save. They tried their best here. They had 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Spine buster from the heavens, and Alexander ate the fall. And Corey Graves was saying that could be the last match we ever see of the Street Profits together. Like, okay, yeah, this could be the end of an era. What a way to go out.
Yeah. I mean, this match really didn't serve much purpose other than to, have some live wrestling on the show and to remind everybody that, hey, tag teams and factions can be broken up next week. So we'll see. Maybe.
Out comes Triple H for his monumental announcement, and he mentions defending this title in this very arena at WrestleMania 22, which the man is, his memory is eluding him that it was actually him challenging John Cena for the title at that WrestleMania.
Oh, okay. I mean, could have fooled me. I know we were both there, but I don't remember this much.
That was that was Conan the Barbarian Hunter coming out, wasn't it?
Right.
Okay. Do you remember who was part of John Cena's entrance?
Who?
CM Punk was one of the gangsters.
Of course. Full circle.
And maybe Cena politely told him, can you just leave the arena now? We got a show to do. So he's here to discuss Roman Reigns approaching 1,000 days as champion. And Roman negotiated himself into a position where he doesn't have to defend the title as frequently. And it has taken us 1,000 days to realize that this is not enough title defenses. The fans need more. So when Roman Reigns is drafted, he will take the undisputed WWE Universal Championship to that brand and stay there. The other brand will determine a new champion, the disputed World Heavyweight Champion, which will be crowned May 27th at Night of Champions. And he reveals this belt and says, this title, the winner will not demand your acknowledgement, but they will earn it. So we are going to have our split championships. Why did Roman Reigns win at WrestleMania? Why are we adding this title? Why are we diluting a championship that we put 3 years into the monumental loss that this thing has been built up for to create this?
Well, first of all, there is no such thing as an undisputed championship anymore. The very existence of the other one just, constitutes that both of them will be disputed. So
you have to get the U out.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
One of the U's. They can keep Universal.
These are all great questions, John, that you brought up.
I don't like this idea at all. I don't like this idea at all.
I think we got to look at maybe like the pros and cons, just to kind of not even defending, one decision or the other, but just to kind of think of maybe like what the thought process was of going this route. Okay. So I guess the pros of like introducing a new championship are that what? And having Roman, I guess, not even having to lose in order to introduce it is that I guess you don't have Roman Reigns have to take a loss. Obviously, there's more merchandising opportunities. What do you think of the way it looks, by the way? In the style of the big gold belt, of course.
I like that it looks. I knew they'd want to plaster that logo on the front of it. I like that it looks different than the typical WWE championships that they've been using with just that giant W with a blue or a red behind it.
It seems to be like like if the current WWE championship and the big gold belt had a baby, it would be like this. Yeah. Anyway, this is going to sell a whole lot, and I guess maybe their belt belt selling division. Maybe.
Well, to that, I would argue that when Roman hits 1,000 days, they present him with this championship, and then you can sell all of these titles. Listen, if we were looking at house shows that were just struggling because there's no world champion on the road, if we were seeing numbers that were just depleted because Roman is only around so often, we've seen the total opposite of that. And in its place, we have for a year now had these titles together where they have. In this generation, I don't think the title has ever felt more important. And that from the examples of Drew McIntyre, of Sami Zayn, of Cody Rhodes, that man, when this guy loses that title, it's going to be such a memorable moment. Mm-hmm. And if you were so dead set on this direction, it's only the latest evidence to have done that title switch 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
Let Cody be the one to state, I am not going to hold on to both of these. He can be the one to give up one, keep the other, which I don't even like that. I like the one consolidated title, but at least if you're going this way, to me, it cheapens when Roman is now we have the 1B guy. And I think whoever wins this title to me feels like such an inferior champion. I would hate for Cody to win this version.
I think you're always going to have that though. Like when they did it in 02, 03, like with Hunter actually getting the World Heavyweight Championship just granted to him. You start off like recognizing Hunter as like sort of the illegitimate
Remember
champion.
When the draft started and he was the undisputed champion and he was the guy that could go back and forth as that one singular champion, and then they split them.
Yeah, when Brock moved, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think like start, and then even when they introduce what is it, the Universal Championship, like to start,
that was the second draft they created that title.
To start, I think you'll always have like maybe that worry that this one championship is going to feel inferior. I think largely audiences get over that, especially if it's like a hot program. It's not going to be maybe as highly regarded as this Roman Reigns championship at this point because Roman is just like maybe so up there. But I think audiences will like accept this as like a world title level.
They will accept it way, but to me, it's like when Roman loses his belt, it's like you're gonna have this belt that you've built up to here. And we're going to have this new title. And all what's going to happen is that in a year from now, this is how we're going to view both titles.
Yeah, they're just people that are just listening. John is basically suggesting that
I'm saying you have two titles that mean less than one singular
big
title.
Agreed. It waters it down completely, and that's one of probably the biggest con. This second title feels secondary, and maybe the biggest heartbreak for me is the knowledge that neither Zayn nor Cody could have taken one of these other championships at the time. Like, they could have done a disputed finish at either Elimination Chamber or WrestleMania that somehow split the championships. Then, if your idea was to have two traveling championships anyway, instead they chose to do this. So,
like,
those
literally,
are
don't you need now, if Roman is one champion, like, don't you have to merge his belts to create a new title? Like, why would he be holding two separate belts now?
Well, maybe he'll just drop the Universal. That's even just a kind of an aside. Like, they're not just doing this for merchandising opportunities. I think it's probably more to do with like the networks, maybe wanting, specific champions, maybe wanting more championship matches on their television products.
Or like what was flat out stated is like having two champions on each show, that would qualify as a big picture idea. So you have to throw that option.
Well,
in
that's
there
what
as
they're
well.
doing. Roman's not going to be changing brands.
Sorry, he'll be on one brand.
He'll be on one brand, yeah.
Yes. I'm just saying, like, a big picture idea, that is something that, like, Vince had stated, like, he would be in charge of like the big picture ideas. And there could very well be like your collision of ideas here, where this is something where if this is mandated, then you have to work this in, because this to me goes counter to your 3-year story of Roman Reigns to just create this new championship that to me just lessens the value of everything involved.
I agree.
Like, there's a time you can do this.
I don't think it's so detrimental to the Roman Reigns like championship run though. Like, at this point, the run is almost like the undefeated length and the duration of his run is almost bigger than like the championship itself. John. So
does it lessen Cody if Cody wins this title first?
It's not as big as if Cody won the undisputed one at WrestleMania. Yes. But again,
like this tournament or however they decided, like, it's all going to be past challengers that have lost to Roman. Like, you pretty much have the whole roster here that has fallen to Roman.
Yeah.
And that's what this feels like. It feels like the consolation belt.
Well, there's no denying that, like, yeah, Cody would have been a bigger deal, or Sammy would have been a bigger deal, or Seth Rollins would have been a bigger deal had they won Roman's championship. But again, we don't know necessarily the reasons for this happening. If it's to, again, facilitate two championship brands for the benefit of the network or whatever. Does this get you there better than just having one champion?
I'm just looking like that's a fine theory. Like, you have a champion on both shows, but we have seen the opposite, that both shows are doing numbers that, like, they are up year over year. Like, both shows are benefiting from this. Like, we're seeing the evidence here. And it's like, it's not some wild theory. It's not just my personal preference that I like one champion. It's the numbers suggest like this has worked.
Agreed. Yeah, with all those points. The caveat though is that like Roman has been really like I would say a special champion. Could they strike that same magic like if it was another champion? And also, like, I think all of this tells me that they're actually very serious about this brand split once it happens, and that's at least to start. Because I don't know if you're going to, like, they want to be able to tell singular stories on one show rather than having, let's say, Cody wins the championship, and can you necessarily tell both of those stories without guys jumping across both shows? It at least gives me a little bit of optimism that they're, sticking to this brand split. But maybe that's reason to be pessimistic, because arguably the shows are better without a brand split.
I have yet to hear a compelling argument why Cody could not have won this. 3 weeks ago.
Absolutely. Or
to me, that solves a lot of the questions. Kathy Kelly approaches the Judgment Day, and Balor goes off to get ready for his match. And Priest says it's awesome that Bad Bunny is here to promote Backlash, but if he gets in their business, he'll go through another table. I'm a bad guy. I don't go to Coachella and get on stage and get into his business, which is a fair point.
Well, he should, maybe.
Maybe he could have, on his Instagram story, been showing himself arriving at Coachella.
I think it was last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago? Something like that.
2 weeks ago? That
would have been a great place to do an angle, wouldn't it? Choke slam.
Maybe if he interrupted Frank Ocean. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
There's a vignette for Bronson Reed. He's strong. The Usos and Sikoa are in their office, and Jimmy is going on about the title match, and Jay is despondent. And they ask, what's wrong? Jay asks, well, what happens if we lose on Friday? And he mentions that he ran into Sammy, and Jimmy loses it, calls it mind games that Zayn is using on you. And you cannot speak with Sami Zayn. Jimmy won't even consider the idea of losing on Friday.
Yeah. No, we've got the Romeo and Juliet of, WWE.
You cannot talk to him.
Star-crossed lovers.
The dreaded Capulets and Montagues here.
Exactly. Just trying to have a conversation backstage, but it's upsetting everybody. And you know what?
Are Sammy and Jay going to end up poisoned?
You know how these tend to go. Yeah.
Bianca Belair and her partners, Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. Chaos and Power, where Raquel, they have now just come up with spots for Raquel to throw Liv around like a crash test dummy. She power bombs her on people, throws her out of the ring. That's their gimmick. It's like, I throw you around because you're small.
Yeah. A bit more effectively than, I guess, Braun Strowman and Ricochet on Friday.
A little bit. They're taking on Damage Control. Heat on Liv for quite some time. She's reaching over, but then as she is trying to get to Belair, she's pulled off the apron by Io. And then there's a backstabber on Kai, tags in Raquel, and Raquel power bombs Liv onto Bayley and Kai on the floor. And Bayley then rolls into the ring, is hit by the KOD in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And we didn't mention it during the promo spot, but they did confirm Bianca Belair will take on Io Sky at Backlash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Solid booking, although I really wouldn't have hated seeing Io pin Bianca in this tag team situation, because why not? What a great way to heat Io up, because I think anybody who's a competitor against Bianca really needs that extra step in order to be taken seriously. And Bianca would have only gained a hotter challenger. But otherwise, I thought a really good match, got a really good crowd reaction throughout.
Should be a very good match on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, we've already seen some, early previews in these interactions on these multi-woman tags. I thought this was like good use of Raquel and Liv as well, setting them up as a surprise and then aligning them with Bianca against a well-established heel team like the Damage Control, because it's a struggle, for Raquel and Liv to find any sort of compelling opponents or tag team partners. Like we saw on Friday, I don't believe like those matches have received like huge reactions, but tonight I thought it worked out well.
Austin Theory came out, and it was the usual Austin Theory promo, but the crowd was really on top of him. So this was like your Night After Mania crowd that they really wanted for Austin Theory. They're chanting, "You suck, you tapped out," and he is interrupted by Bobby Lashley, who gives him the Nick Khan. Listen, kid, I haven't met the kid. Lashley says that Theory has run away from every obstacle. He knows how tough Austin Theory is, but doesn't think that Austin knows how tough he is. And he asks, are you lazy or are you scared? And I'm the one who requested a triple threat at Backlash. Theory asks, if you're so good at requesting matches, where was your match at WrestleMania? Which was like a great line that like Lashley had no comeback for. He's just like, I should ram your teeth down your throat. And that's what he tried to do. He got into a fight.
His opponent got injured.
Yeah. Bronson Reed got involved, and it ended with Reed and Theory working together as Theory hit the A-Town down onto Lashley, but then Reed runs over Theory and hits him with the tsunami and holds up the belt, which ensures he's not winning the belt.
Maybe does telegraph that. Yeah. Big reaction for the tsunami, which tells me I think those vignettes that they've been airing have probably been at least effective for Chicago. Really, everything worked in front of Chicago tonight.
I mean, this was a very generous crowd for like heels, baby faces. Like they elevated most on the show, but not everyone. And that's why these guys were all in the back. We had Rick Boogs with Elias. Boogs is all stressed out with the draft coming out. So we get Chad Gable to explain how the draft works. You are our human, like, text on the screen to explain the rules of the draft, that there will be people eligible on night 1 and others eligible on night 2. And Gable and Maxine are both fighting for control of Otis. And Mustafa Ali walks in saying they have to have a positive mentality and that Gable could reach his full potential if he's on his own, but he's a loser. So that is our premise for Chad Gable and Mustafa Ali tonight, which when I heard this, I was like, listen, I'll take it. I'll take it if we're going to get these two on TV. We got a minute 50 of these two where Ali missed a 450. Chaos Theory is countered into a roll-up, and Ali wins in his hometown.
Yeah, big surprise.
Huge.
There you go. I think this like positive Ali character is like might be a front runner for my least favorite gimmick this year. It's been pretty grating every time I've had to see it, because I think Mustafa Ali is awesome, but this just feels such a bad fit for him.
This
and
feels
maybe
like a guy that has just been like, you know what? I could go on Twitter and say I was rejected my release today, and this is when I'm a free agent. But he's deciding, you know what? I'm done fighting. I'm just going to take this, and we're just going to ride it out.
Are you saying maybe the Dyad is like that result for Grizzled Young
I'm
Vets?
saying at this stage, Ali would probably be intrigued to be in the Dyad.
Maybe. But maybe they made him happy by giving him a win here in a minute 30 seconds in Chicago.
I'm sure this is a huge
change his mind.
highlight.
He's going to re-up.
This is a
5
Wikipedia
years.
entry in his bio.
Yeah.
Zayn catches up with Jimmy Uso, and Jimmy tells him basically to stay away from Jay, and asks, instead of asking about my brother, what about yours? Owens never forgave you. He just used you to get to the tag titles. So what happens if you guys lose the belts? It's going to be Owens turning on you, and you're going to deserve it.
Mind games.
Some good psychology here from Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Finn Balor, Cody Rhodes. Cody's ribs are taped up. Crowd was very hot for this. We see Cody landing a super kick, then stops a shotgun drop kick, hits the Cody cutter. Balor comes back, stomping on the ribs, shotgun drop kick, but misses the coup de grace, and Crossroads is turned into an inside cradle, but then Cody recovers. Pedigree, Crossroads, 11 minutes and 6 seconds as Cody gets the win.
I kind of forget that he's like adopted the pedigree just as like a move now, like he's not just teasing it. He's actually doing it now.
But it's only the setup for the finisher.
I know. I think Cody's selling was really good here. With every breath, you could kind of see the pain on his face as he was trying to sell his ribs. It was a similar type of like feeling, or to a much smaller degree, that I had with his Hell in a Cell torn pec match. And I think he just continues to deliver these like really great main event level babyface performances, just filled with like, I think, great audience reaction and audience connection. First of all, like people might get mad at me, but like I kind of see him like approach the level of like a Tanahashi when it comes to just a guy who's wrestling not just for the moves but everything in between the moves. I think Cody is really good at all that. And I think Balor did great in his role too. He's probably the guy who had more reason to actually sell, just given all of the injuries that he's.
Dude, this guy's worked every week since WrestleMania.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's got no time off. Seth comes out to discuss his big match with Omos and explain to us why is this happening. But he gets distracted by the new championship belt and says, some of us still want to fight. And this title is our chance to fight and push the industry forward. And this title will mean more than politics and part-timers.
Yeah. Are you surprised at how much like they've kind of pinned the part-timer politician label onto Roman Reigns in story here tonight? Like between what Hunter said and between what Rollins said here, like he's being painted as like, a guy who does not respect.
The Hunter promo was interesting because the first half of it, it's like he's going out of his way to just compliment Roman and this incredible run, and he is the champion. But then the back half of it is all in the, pretty much just like
he's not going to make you acknowledge. People are going to earn your respect. Yeah.
It's there was more of it than they've done in the past with Roman, but that's kind of like the story to explain why they are adding a championship when we have a champion.
Well, they're kind of making Roman feel like an illegitimate champion, and I don't know if that's as a way to prop this new one up. Or if they're trying to build something with Roman against an authority figure or something, but it felt kind of uncharacteristic and unproductive for a Roman Reigns.
I mean, that was the playbook they did with Brock forever, and I didn't think that was the best utilization. That here's the guy that has no interest in being here.
Right. Yeah. Weird.
MVP says he respects Seth Rollins immensely. He's one of the best superstars to ever grace a WWE ring, and my job is to get Omos giant matches. And you shouldn't be overlooking Omos because you might not have a future after Backlash. Rollins says that Omos is a once-in-a-generation talent because he was born that way. Rollins is a once-in-a-generation talent because I made myself that way. I'm going to make you famous. I'm going to give you the match of your life. And then you're going to wake up hearing an arena singing your song. And that is our setup for Backlash. Can Seth get a great match out of Omos and then move on to something important?
Have UFC fighters ever like threatened somebody by saying, "I'm going to give you a great match and then I'm going to beat you. I'm going to give you a great fight." I mean, I guess it is like, you know,
Maybe
like
Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, like people want to try to achieve fight of the night, right? Like that's a thing.
Yeah, but you kind of need to pull that off.
Like if you're like what usually gets fight of the night? They're not squash matches. It's like back and forth affairs.
Back and forth fight.
So Rollins is promising this will be a 50-50 match, basically.
Yeah, he's pretty much, in not so many words, said
I'm gonna hit you
I'm gonna get you
me.
like 3.5 stars out of this, because that's probably your ceiling.
I love that,
and that seems generous.
What did the Brock match get? You know,
I don't know.
If he has any chance of like elevating himself to maybe a 4-star level, it would be against Seth Rollins, I would say.
I mean, if he does, then he's a miracle worker. If he can do that. I mean, I'm still curious to see this match,
and really
the sheer dynamics of it. This is like Shinsuke Nakamura and Bad Luck Fale at like Nakamura, like the one where he like busted his nose open and actually got like a pretty great match out of Fale, who could have his moments. Fale had his moments.
Yeah, but the match, like the build for this is really simple. Just kind of like, have these two stand side by side, show the size discrepancy, and let's see what happens. That's it.
We go to the back, and last week Wai was talking about like the real committed evolution of the Matt Riddle character to be more serious. Well, we're back to explaining Little Giants. This movie came out like 30 years ago with Rick Moranis and Ed O'Neill, and he's explaining the annexation of Puerto Rico. I could not believe that I could recall all of this when I had this movie on VHS. It was one of those movies you saw a bunch of times. Did you ever see it?
Football movie? No, I never saw it.
It's a kid's football movie. It's not worth seeing. Owens just screams, "Where have you been?" to Sammy, because he's been stuck all day listening to this guy. Owens cannot understand why Zayn is still speaking with the Usos. He said, "It's too late for them, and I'm only worried about keeping these tag titles," and storms off. And Riddle tells Zayn, "I know what you're going through." And Zayn says, "Really? Do you?" And he mentions that every week people told me Randy was going to turn on me, but we were bros, and so are you and Owens. And Zayn thinks about it and says, "Okay, thanks." He actually did have a connection to what these two are going through.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like Owens in this segment. Like the idea that not only is this in tune with the Owens character, which some of these babyface promos have not been, but this also feeds into the whole Usos or Jimmy's like theory that Owens doesn't care about you. He cares about the tag titles. And once they lose them, he's going to turn on you. And this interaction by Sammy with Kevin would only reinforce that if you're already having that doubt about Kevin's real intentions here.
Interesting. I guess I didn't think about it that deeply, but I think
I had a lot of time to think. Wai, I was still trying to make sense out of the third world title in this company.
Mm-hmm.
Bad Bunny documented his whole arrival to Chicago on his Instagram story. This guy was auditioning for a role on like Nitro in the glory days. Showed up like 10 minutes before the show was going off the air.
I know. Really? Like maybe he was just circling around Chicago.
Rey Mysterio against Damian Priest is the main event, and Bad Bunny arrives. Good match here. Priest runs his shoulder into the post, and Rey hits an Asai moonsault, sets up Priest in place for the 619, but is dropped with a super kick, avoids the Razor's Edge, but then takes an elevated flatliner, and Priest goes for a chair, which is drop kick through the ropes, and he goes for South of Heaven. It's countered to a head scissors. Rey hits the 619, climbs to the top for the frog splash, but Priest whips the chair at Rey's head, causing the DQ at 11 minutes and 3 seconds, and then hits the South of Heaven to Rey, clears the desk, when out comes Bad Bunny to save Jefe. And he's got a kendo stick. And he comes and he attacks Damian Priest. And my God, these kendo stick shots just sounded like a baseball bat going off of Damian Priest. And they fight on the desk. He takes out Damian's leg. Huge swings here by Bad Bunny. as Priest is retreating, and it ends with Bad Bunny standing on top of the desk, addressing Damian Priest and announcing, "I'm no longer hosting Backlash. Now I'm going to Puerto Rico to kick your ass," and announces that it is Damian Priest against Bad Bunny in a street fight, a singles match they are going with.
Yeah. Didn't expect this. I don't know if a lot of people did,
This is a really curious choice when Ray and Dominic made all the sense in the world. And yeah, I mean, Ray was so attached to this. I mean, you would imagine that Ray would have some presence in this with Dominic, but maybe they feel the singles direction is the more valuable way to go.
I mean, it is the more valuable way to go, like just promoting a Bad Bunny like wrestling match, and especially in a featured singles profiled spot. Like, I think this becomes your main event, or at least maybe the most attention you'll get to a match itself. I can only maybe suspect like this might have been Bad Bunny's call. Like, I'm sure he wanted the challenge. Last time we saw him, of course, it was a tag team match. Saw him in the Rumble. He's never had a singles match, so this is a big test for him. And I think he's shown enough that I'm sure he'll be more than capable. Especially,
and they're going to work it with the street fight. Gives them a lot of latitude, and I mean, already you're going to have a red hot crowd, and with weapons and such, this will get over very well.
100%, yeah. And I think Ray will be involved.
You can do all of that stuff, do some run-ins, and people will get into it. I mean, really, you just want to see a 619 thrown in there, and Ray and Bad Bunny celebrating at the end.
But I feel like the sort of the billing of a Bad Bunny singles match is big. It's really big.
That might be the thinking. It might be as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is shaping up to be like a really big show for the company between this and
certainly a bigger backlash than we've had in many, many years.
No, we don't have a zombie lumberjack match though.
Well, there's still time.
You're right. So that was Raw, largely built around the Bad Bunny angle, the addition of the championship, and a great crowd in Chicago. So those it had a lot of factors working for it, but some puzzling stuff, I would say. Like, and again, like it's whose direction it is or not, but I would say my biggest criticisms at the moment of WWE has been the big things, such as you first of all coming off of Mania with the finish that they did, okay, but now you're going with a draft, you're adding a title. I don't know whose calls those are, but those would be big picture directions that you would be going in, and it certainly to me it is causing like it is ending the flow of like a lot of these stories that it feels as though they are now working around these new additions. Like is now the time for separate brands.
Interrupting the flow of the stories, meaning you think
you have a lot of these programs that I think are going to be broken up because of the draft, that you're going to have these separate rosters. I mean,
you would think that they would keep a lot of them on the same show, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, just the idea of look at how these shows have been booked, where the bloodline has been such a prominent focus.
Right. But their story has always been with Zayn and Owens. You would think that they would stick together, right?
You would think, but I think they're also going to break up some of these as well. Like
we'll see. I think we'll see once the result of the draft comes. But I mean, I think introducing a championship is really just an extension of this, like brand split idea, the draft idea. And I have to imagine it like it's motivated by business. It probably is motivated by maybe networks demands, or maybe Vince. I don't know. Who knows? But I don't like it either. But I'm also willing to see, at least for the first few weeks, like how it plays out.
I mean, it is all in the execution, and they are riding a pretty high wave at the moment. And you look at, like, they are selling a lot of tickets to shows that they are putting on sale. Like there is a hot streak for the company that they are riding. You can argue what would this period be like if you had the new face of the company and that fresh feel of a new champion for the first time. Like, would this be anywhere approximating like an Austin effect in '98, where he reaches the pinnacle of winning that title, and then business just goes to another level post WrestleMania. Like maybe not. Maybe this was the right call to make, but you can certainly look at, like, they are putting they've been riding this great wave, and they are going to interrupt that, and we'll see if they maintain or if there's a bit of a loss.
I would say they've already interrupted it.
Yeah,
the Cody loss.
I think they have. So there you go. Raw from Chicago. And we will open it up to some feedback now. If you have any super chats, if you are in the room, you can throw in your questions, your comments, your feedback. Let us start off, Way.
All right, let's go to super chats first of all. And this one comes to us from Rob Bahari, who sends 220 to just say it, John Way. Go Leafs, go, or refund me.
Oh, that's a spoiler. So I taped the game. I was going to watch it out. It was 4-1 for Tampa, so I turned it off in the third period. I knew it was over, right?
Wow, they rallied back from 4-1.
They won in overtime, dude.
That's pretty damn good.
They're up 3-1 in the series. So how will they blow this?
This has been like I've only been like watching the final scores, but and maybe some highlights, but it's looked like a pretty exciting series, swing both ways. So
yeah. It looked pretty dire by the start of the third period tonight. But another note just of how it would affect if they end up going to Game 7, and this is the Leafs, they could easily blow the next 2 games and go to Game 7. That would be next Monday night in Canada. So that would be a monster game if it goes 7 for this first round. But this would be the first time the Leafs have won a playoff series since 2004.
And I think John just jinxed it right there. So not happening. Jake from the Windy City sends $2 to say, Leafs fans, it's still just the first round. Relax. Okay.
Who's he talking to?
To Rob, clearly.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if there's any Leaf fan that is getting ahead of themselves. If you know the amount of disappointment that this team brings, I don't think anyone is getting ahead of themselves.
Brandon from New Jersey sends $5 to say, Chancla on a pole fight in Old San Juan. I dig it. That's what he wants to see.
Maybe Brandon's going to be our correspondent. We'll send him to San Juan.
I couldn't think of a better person for the job. So thank you, Brandon. Thank you for smoothie recipe. Let's go to Matt Hahn, who sends $5 to say, besides Braun, do you see any other NXT wrestlers getting drafted? Yeah, draft predictions. Do you have any at least like call-ups?
I could certainly see, like, to me, Roxanne Perez is more than ready. I would be pulling the trigger on her. It already feels as though they are focusing more on Indy Hartwell as sort of the babyface female. And Roxanne Perez, I don't know what more she gets out of another 6 months to a year in NXT. So she would be very high on the list.
I think Cruz comes back.
Apollo Crews.
Yeah.
That's possible. They have a lot of tag teams there, whether you're looking at like Pretty Deadly to come up or I don't love the idea of the Creeds coming up yet. I think they still have fine tuning to go through. I do not see them as a finished product yet. I would like to see them stay in NXT. Damon Kemp as well.
How about like some of these like North American championship level guys like Ilya Dragunov or JD McDonough?
That really is going to come down to what they are looking for. Like I would certainly worry about any of those two specifically that you mentioned being in a similar role as a Johnny Gargano on the main roster. I talent wise, they're there. Is coming up with it with all these people. They would come with question marks, but it would certainly be possible.
Yeah.
But I really do see the next like wave of NXT being built around like Carmelo Hayes sticking around, being their champion, getting his run. Tiffany Stratton seems to be earmarked to be their big female breakout.
Yeah. Somebody like a Wendy Chu, I don't know if like has that much more to accomplish in an NXT.
Well, that's what I look like at a Pretty Deadly or a Wendy Chu of the heavy character based performers that sometimes do get that look and get the call up.
Yeah.
Like even someone like maybe they drop the Chase U gimmick, but a Duke Hudson coming up. Like there's certain ones where it's sort of we either cut bait or like how long is someone going to stay in NXT
if
they've been
NXT
there
is
several
developmental,
years?
I don't know how much more they're going to be developed. You know, they've found their characters. They've
Well, that's
found
it.
their
I
voices.
don't think they want lifers down in NXT, or like once you've been down there for 3-4 years, it's sort of okay. What are we doing with this person? Are they main roster ready or not? And if they're not, then it's like what are we doing here?
Mhm. All right, let's go to some feedback.
We'll start off-
Forum.postwrestling.com.
Muggin writes in, the reintroduction to Big Gold leaves me with some more questions and answers. Does Cody's story have an alternate ending, or does he keep chasing the Samoan dragon that he failed to slay at WrestleMania? Friday should provide an answer one way or another. It sounds like a promo. Seth deserves something after being the good soldier for the past 12 months, so he's a surefire pick to hold this rebooted Big Gold. If it's Brock, no way.
Is Seth a surefire? Like, is he a front runner for the championship? He'd be a great choice. You know, you'd get your TV defenses every couple weeks. That would be really hot. I'd like to see Cody stay on this path, you know, to face Roman Reigns, especially since like the whole story is that Dusty never had that championship, not this new one, right? Like he never had the WWE championship.
Imagine that. Finish the story. The American dream in Saudi Arabia for the newly created World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah.
Finish a story.
Yeah. Let's go up next to Mr. Kane, who says, so much for unification. We're back to 2 brand titles, and although Triple H's promo may rally the casuals, I see nothing more than a glorified intercontinental title in the form of the 10 pounds of corporate synergy. That's another great question, because I think at this point, Gunther's championship feels bigger than it has been in a long, long time. What is the introduction of, you know, a permanent world title on that show with more, you would think, regular world title defenses on TV? How does that affect him?
I mean, it just kind of lowers that belt in the pecking order. I mean, that you could certainly have Gunther on the Roman Reigns show, and in his absence, Gunther is still in a pretty elevated role because of the absence.
Right. Good point. All right. He says, and in regards to the Punk news, this guy keeps getting people talking about him all while posting MMA bouts on his IG, letting his pals talk for him via podcasts, and getting spotted at a WWE event. You think a guy who wanted to make amends would actually start with the company he's contracted with? He should have taken note of Thunder Rosa, who had been sidelined and facing the ire of some in the locker room, did her part, apologized for her part, and still promoted AEW through her various outlets. She's handled her stuff, all while not making the company look Bush League. That's a professional. If Punk's intent is to create the ultimate heel persona upon his return, he's doing a great job.
Yeah, but heels to who? Heels to your coworkers? Because he's not being received as a heel when he walks out on June 17th.
Yeah, not at all. Will he be perceived as a heel outside of Chicago? And I mean, I'm not in agreement with, you know, Mr. Kane's idea. I still maintain that this is probably an entire ploy from everybody involved, but he's saying, is it to create a heel persona against the elite that
would
are like company guys?
Would you at least be you know, if this were a publicity stunt?
Yeah.
It's not like they're cluing in the locker room, and the locker room is probably viewing this like, is that sort
the
of
AEW locker room? You mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So
the ones that are already, you know, number that would be probably against the idea of Punk even coming back to begin with, and then you're seeing this. Like, is this a positive in terms of reacclimating CM Punk into your locker room, or is it just yet another issue that we're just throwing onto the fire?
You could be right. I don't know if it necessarily hurts the tensions that are, or it increases the tensions that might already be there. I think ultimately that will come down to what conversations he's having with the individuals backstage.
Well, we will see. Let's go to one more here, and it's Alexander from Portland. Okay, show tonight. Nice to see Ray main event Raw, even if the match ended in a DQ. If Ray isn't wrestling on Backlash, then why couldn't he lose to Damian, who is heading into arguably the biggest match of his career? Triple H introducing. I think that the DQ necessitated Bad Bunny running in. Like, why is Bad Bunny coming out and attacking Damian Priest after? I mean, you could argue like just going for the revenge, but it kind of. I didn't care about the DQ.
Ray could also be wrestling, and Ray has also lost a lot. You know.
Yeah, and I would argue that I think this also opens up the idea of the L.W.O. doing something on the show, because there's no way Backlash is not happening without that. And maybe they view Ray more valuable teaming with L.W.O. and doing an 8-man, and that could be Balor, Dominic, and you find some others. Or you even just do a tag match if it's Santos and Rey against Balor and Dominic, because I imagine L.W.O is going to have a massive impact on that backlash, or a significant role on the show. And the L.W.O having Rey is a bigger thing, and maybe
Chavo.
they view and
Chavo can come in.
There you go with Conan. So he goes on to say that Triple H introducing a new title because WWE doesn't want to take one away from Roman feels laughable. The addition of a new title scene will make the post-brand split Raw and SmackDown feel bigger, but I feel Roman's reign will be somewhat damaged. I'm intrigued to see how the draft will work, since there is a big PLE between both nights of the draft. No, there's not. The draft is Friday and Monday, and Backlash is not till a week from Saturday. So they will do the drafts, then they do Backlash. And I assume then everything goes into effect after. And also says that Karen and Bruce's Stardom review was a great listen. Will Fox or USA have any say in who will get drafted where? I mean, in the past, you've heard like the networks having some, I guess, you are appealing to them. I don't know if they have like a strong say, like we need to have this person or that person, but it's
because ultimately it doesn't even matter, right? Like throughout the course of the year, like they just tend to waver from.
Yeah, I mean, from the network side, honestly, if I'm trying to like acquiesce to both networks, I mean, this format, it's like you can have everybody because we're going to put our biggest stars on both shows and we can make everyone happy, and your numbers are going up with this. It's like it's one less thing about, one side gets Roman and one side gets Ronda or whoever, however you want to disperse this talent. Do you see there being more of a hard line to this draft than we have seen in past iterations of the brand split?
At least to start, yes. Yeah. And I think, this new championship and like doing something as big as basically splitting Roman's championship in essence, I think tells you that at least to start, they're very serious about this line.
Well, we are very serious that we are all out of time. So thank you to everybody for joining us. Thank you for the feedback and the super chats. Coming up on Tuesday, it's Up Next from the Poison Rana team of Braden Harrington and Davey Portman right after Spring Breakin.
Could this be the last time you might see some of your favorite NXT stars in NXT?
That is true. It could be the last time you see some of your stars at Joey Gacy's Spring Breakin. Wai and I are back Wednesday night following Dynamite in Sunrise, Florida, and then talk up at postwrestlingcafe.com. This Thursday, we have multiple cafe shows this week. Of course, Friday night, we will be live at 10 Eastern, immediately following night one of the draft. So we will go through all of the results that are coming out of SmackDown. So that is it for us. Thank you and goodbye.